Welcome back to Dear Future, where we explore the cutting edge of creativity and technology. I'm Suki, broadcasting from one of my favorite beating hearts of artistry, Echo Bend Studios in Los Angeles. Today, we're peeking into a mind that pushes every boundary in the filmmaking playbook. Our guest is Nem Perez, a visionary filmmaker, director, and creative technologist who came up in the Chicago hip-hop scene and is redefining what is possible in visual storytelling today. Nem's work isn't just about capturing moments, it's about creating them, from directing iconic music videos for artists like Chance the Rapper to co-creating our T2 remake, the groundbreaking AI-driven film that's challenging everything we think we know about cinema. Nem is always ahead of the curve. As the founder of Storyblocker, he's revolutionizing how filmmakers bring their visions to life, blending augmented reality, real-time 3D, and AI into a seamless toolkit for today's storytellers. His journey from the streets of Chicago to the studios of Los Angeles has seen him work with global brands like Disney, VW, Honda, and his influence in the world of visual art is undeniable.
This idea that everything's been done before can be challenged.
I've been dreaming of a computer like this my whole life.
It really made me think more about how our brains work.
It's not coming from anywhere else. It's only coming from us.
Dear Future.
Nem, welcome to the show. I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
Now, we're going to get into some things that you might not have talked about in other spaces, which is, what were your earliest encounters with technology and the earliest instances of what you are doing today?
That's a great question, and honestly, probably something that's influenced my whole life. I remember it very vividly, actually. I'm probably going to age myself, but that's okay.
We're here for it.
When Windows 95 came out, I remember vividly my father bringing home the first IBM PC with Windows 95 on it. From that moment on, just being like really mesmerized by this computer that we had access to. And then shortly after that, the internet just exploded with AOL. So I very vividly remembered taking advantage of all the opportunities that this computer allowed me, whether it was MS Paint or being able to research things on the internet or talk to people in AOL chat rooms.
Oh my God, AIM. What was your handle?
I don't remember. It was something probably like nerdy and Star Wars related or something.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I remember that from that point on, I was always the kid in the family that knew everything there was to know about computers. So having a computer early in my life really changed a lot of things for me because it allowed me to just harness the computer and use it for whatever I wanted.
I just remember the dial-up modem sound forever burned into my memory.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those early internet communities, like, do you remember Neopets?
Neopets.
There was like Neopets was like one of those early websites that would like, it was like gamified internet. And then there was all those new games, like it was like Zeus and like the Gods of Olympus and all of those early computer games, The Sims.
Yep. Computer games were big. For me, it was like Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yes.
Yeah,
totally.
yeah. Definitely was obsessed with computer games.
Empire building.
Age of Empires.
Yeah,
that was a huge one for me. So yeah, definitely, those early days in the late 90s, being on computers and really harnessing that was a huge influence for me.
Yeah. And so you also work in the world of filmmaking and storytelling. What were the earliest examples of your passion for storytelling?
Well, Star Wars was a big one. I remember very vividly as soon as I saw C-3PO and R2-D2 walk on the desert, I was immediately just entranced by that. And I just wanted to know more about that world. So I think Star Wars introduced me to this idea of being able to build a world that you can tell your story in. So world building and the early Star Wars things was really a big influence. And also music videos, in the late 90s, music videos were like huge. So for me, Spike Jonze was a huge influence early on. And I remember even recreating a lot of those Spike Jonze videos with my friends in our backyard or down by our street or whatever. So that's when I knew that I wanted to be a filmmaker, when I would get my dad's DV cam and shoot music videos with my friends in the street. And that was, just a fun time.
It's also so fun because it's like actually recording to tape, those tiny little tapes that you would have. And I remember the moments where you'd record over something where you'd forget that something was on it, and then you'd see weird cuts, like the earliest cuts on the cameras.
Yeah. This might have been like 5th grade or something, but I remember I had a science project where I needed to describe the digestive system or something. I ended up cutting this video with the VHS to VHS workflow.
Oh, so cool.
And we used stop motion with Star Wars action figures, and there was like
cute.
Jabba the Hutt ate Yoda and Yoda went down the digestive tract, and that's how we were able to do my science project.
That's so great.
Yeah, I was always very into like editing and using film in cool ways with like stop motion, and every step of the way technology was involved.
That's awesome. Early days, early cutting.
Very early days, yeah.
And so in that era of time of getting really excited about storytelling and also technology, creative technology, you developed a passion for different stories that ended up getting you maybe some good luck charms. So I want to know about your DeLorean. And I want to know what your experience was first watching Back to the Future and what inspired you to get a DeLorean.
Well, Back to the Future was always one of my favorite movies. Something must have happened when I was 5 years old and on, because I have photos of myself when I was 5 in a DeLorean. I remember going to like Universal Studios and seeing the DeLorean for the first time in person. And, you know, obviously Back to the Future was such an inspiration. So I knew that I always wanted a car. And I was fortunate enough to start my career at an early age. And instead of buying a condo or doing maybe something more smart with my money, I ended up just buying a DeLorean. But actually, it ended up paying off in so many ways.
Also, I just want to know where you purchased it. Was from some guy, like used car salesman? Where do you buy a DeLorean?
Actually, I did a really, really risky thing, which was I bought it sight unseen on Craigslist.
No way!
Yeah. I sent the guy the money sight unseen, you know, like he could have just ran off with it, but I guess I trusted him. And then sure enough, it arrived at my doorstep.
I love this. You're so risk tolerant.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely very risk tolerant. When it came to me doing my first music video, we didn't have a big budget. I think we had $500, but we had a DeLorean. So we made the DeLorean a big part of this music video. Honestly, the first cut of the video was like trash. It wasn't getting any good. But what I ended up doing was like throwing away all the story stuff, all the really ambitious things that I wanted to do with my very first music video with only $500. Ended up recutting the video to be more stylistic and more animated and more visual. We dropped the video and so many things changed after that because the artist got signed to Rick Ross's label right after that. A week after the video dropped and ended up on MTV. And then I got my next music video like almost immediately. So just from that little $500 music video, it pretty much kickstarted my career, and also Rocky Fresh, which was the artist that we did the video for. So
that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You're in this sort of scene now. You're catapulted not only to helping a hip hop artist get known, you're in Chicago, you're about to start making more music videos. What happens after that?
So just to go back a bit, I grew up in Chicago from a middle class family. And when it came to college, I was kind of lost. I never really had the opportunity to go to college. My parents really didn't set me up that way. Mm-hmm. However, like I said, I had a computer and I really used that to empower myself. And I ended up teaching myself code in high school, and I had access to these resources, just like how everyone has access to resources now. I ended up teaching myself how to write ActionScript Flash, and I got a career in advertising. At 17 years old, I was working at Leo Burnett, which is the biggest ad agency in Chicago. And because of that, I was always in advertising, and then I would do the music videos nights and weekends. So I had two trajectories, which was being a creative technologist in advertising, but then I had a really big passion for music videos. And somewhere along the lines, those two got blended. But that's essentially how I got my start in Chicago. So the music video stuff, the streetwear scene, the party scene was a huge, huge part of how I came up in Chicago, but also advertising really taught me a lot about presenting the brands and organizing and structure. And it really informed me later on when I started my own company.
You were also very early to the social media virality game, and you went viral on Vine before I think anybody that I know.
Yeah, you did your research. Yeah, I love that.
I learned some stuff. And so tell me about the Vine experience and what you learned about social media and how that influenced you as a storyteller.
Going back to the DeLorean, right? So I came to Los Angeles probably like in 2013, and I worked at Deutsche LA. I was really at the bottom of the totem pole. I was just an editor. I wasn't a creative director, an art director, or anything like that, which, you know, I wanted to be, but I just didn't have the opportunity. However, October 21st, 2015 is the day that Marty goes to the future.
In Back to the Future.
In Back to the Future. And that date was slowly coming to arise. And I wanted to do something special. So my DeLorean was getting shipped from Chicago to LA. And I had an idea for a Vine video, like, yo, we should do like a Vine video for Back to the Future Day and just make it about like all the dumb shit that's going on in the future, right? Like, would this be the future that Marty would be proud of, right?
It's like Idiocracy.
Idiocracy, right? So you think of hoverboards and drones and VR headsets and selfie sticks and like just all the stupid shit that like exists in the future. Like, it's probably not the future that, you know, Marty would have wanted to go to maybe.
Yeah.
And so I just mashed all that into like a 6-second video for Vine, and it blew up the next day. It was like on the front page of Reddit. I think it got like 20 million Vine loops that day. And from that point on, actually, everyone in the advertising agency at Deutsch knew my name. So it really helped.
You're the Vine guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone knew who I was from that point on. Remember, I was just an editor. I always say that I have great ideas. It's just like I need the platform to tell them. And that was the platform for me at that time. Because of that, when I moved on, a lot of those creative directors at Deutsch ended up going to Disney. And when they were looking for someone who had the ability to edit and to do this and come up with ideas, they immediately reached out to me. I think it's because of that moment that I became viral that I was able to get other opportunities in the future.
That's amazing. And since then, you ended up working with Disney on a project. You've ended up working with a lot of other big brands. What did that era of commercialization teach you about your own craft as a storyteller? Because in the commercial world, I think there's a very specific type of storytelling.
Well, first, let me go back a bit because we're talking about a theme here of being able to create opportunity for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And when that opportunity came up for Disney, I had actually reached out to a bunch of production companies for help. Like, hey, I have this, Disney called me. I have no idea what to do. They want me to produce and direct this huge national campaign. Can you help me? And I got turned down by like 3 production companies saying like, no, we can't help you. Not enough budget, yada, yada. So I actually started my own production company because of that. And that really empowered me and kind of taught me to be a leader, because from that point on, I had to hire a team of editors and so on. Basically, I produced, I cut, and I directed all of those spots in-house at Disney for about 4 months. And since then, I've directed over a dozen commercials. But what I love about my relationship with Disney is they really understand me. And I think it's really important as a director working in commercials to work on things that you understand and you can relate to, right? And I've always had a big passion for Disney, Star Wars, and all of this. So that's what I think like really helped with all of the work that I've done with Disney, because it comes from a real place of understanding, these stories and a passion. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's so important when you're working with a brand or a client, that you're aligned with vision and passion. The end product is just going to be more genuine. And I think audiences want that.
Yeah, that authenticity. Mm-hmm. And so in that search for authenticity in your own kind of style of storytelling, how did you get to AI? And when was your inception moment?
I've always been into technology. I have a background in creative technology. I have a background in visual effects. So artificial intelligence was just a natural progression of that. First time I got introduced to AI was through Midjourney. And almost immediately, I saw it as a tool for being able to tell stories with film. I started creating storyboards for an idea that I had. So that was the first aha moment. That was really empowering for me, because so many people in this world, we all have these really big ideas, but those ideas may never see the light of day. And I think artificial intelligence is allowing that for the first time ever. So being able to see my ideas like visualized was like very cathartic. Yeah, I don't know. It was just like a beautiful moment where like I've had this idea locked in my head forever. Sometimes it's hard to communicate with words, but for me, the best way to communicate is visually. And I was able to finally communicate my ideas.
What were the first ideas that came to your head that you were like, I gotta make this thing, and how am I gonna do it?
I did a trailer for a big epic science fiction movie that awesome. Involved time travel, and it had themes of all the movies that I had loved, like Star Wars and Mad Max and things like that. From then on, I use it a lot for pitches, for clients, for music videos, just to be able to express myself visually, because as many people know, prior to AI, the way that you would do it is you would go on a Pinterest board and find a thing that's more or less the thing that you want to communicate, but not exactly the thing that you're trying to communicate.
Like this.
It's kind of like this, yeah. Then you go in a meeting and you're like
Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Between two ferns.
Yeah, it's like kind of like, okay, so if you can imagine, it's like kind of like this, but like
dark and romantic.
Dark and or red, and okay, so we're gonna do this. And I think sometimes when you're doing that with a client, a lot of things can get lost in translation. What AI is allowing you to do is to be very precise with your communication and with your vision, instead of sacrificing during that process.
And what would you say your style was when you were first playing with it? Because I think all of our creative tastes morph and transform, especially in conversation with creative tools. And I noticed as I was playing with visual generative tools that I went from one style to another, and I was kind of trying to find what my tastes were, in the same way that when I was taking pictures on an analog camera, I was trying to figure out, like, do I like portraits or do I like landscapes, or like, what is it that I like?
Yeah.
And I'm curious, where did you start and where did you land with your aesthetic taste around AI work?
I would say just rooted in all of the things that I grew up in, which are like films from the 80s and 90s, really dictated a lot of my style, right? It's like using a lot of film grain or film stocks, a lot of backlighting. And also a lot of my ideas still stemmed in science fiction or horror or, genre filmmaking for sure. So I was very rooted in that space.
And so from Midjourney, where did you go next?
I made still images for this trailer that I had, and then like literally the day that Runway dropped their video model, I turned that into a trailer. So I had all these still images, and I was like, all right, let's make a trailer out of it instead of just boards or images. I'm not gonna like toot my own horn here, but I was like one of the first people to do that. I know like everyone does trailers now. I was probably like maybe second or third in line there.
That's amazing.
But now everyone does trailers because it makes sense to make trailers. You're not gonna make a feature-length film, but I think making trailers is probably the easiest way to be able to, explain your vision. So.
So you went into Runway. How else did you experiment? Where did your adventures into AI take you?
This whole time when I was experimenting with like Midjourney and Runway, that's when I started my company, Storyblocker. And it was through this idea of how can we communicate our ideas visually for clients or for previs just in general. And AI just immediately made sense. When I started Storyblocker, it actually wasn't AI powered. It was more so using 3D and augmented reality, but AI just basically supercharged all of that. And for me, that was a really big light bulb moment.
So tell me a little bit about the inception of this company. What were the struggles and the pain points that you were kind of running into that made you want to be a founder? Because there's a lot of energy and time and so much insanity that you have to deal with to run your own company. And you've clearly dealt with a lot of adversity and had to be resilient and create your own future and your dreams. But what made you want to make a company out of it?
Being a founder is definitely very hard. There's a lot of ups and downs and a lot of uncertainty, and you just have to be confident in your vision and confident in knowing that what you're building is the best thing possible for this world. And I really do believe that with Storyblocker. I was actually working on a commercial that involved a lot of visual effects, and like working with a storyboard artist is great, but it's very slow and time intensive. So I needed to find a way that was very fast and effective in being able to pivot when you have new ideas and then being able to translate that and send it right to client for approval. So I started messing with some third-party apps, but I saw like a big gap in what they were able to do. And immediately I thought, well, someone can make probably better product for this. Why not me? Because I understand it very well.
Yeah. But so you were like, I could do this.
Yeah.
And then what did you do? Did you call some coder friends? Was it like a hacker house?
Yeah. First off, adversity is something that's always been part of my life. Same story with Storyblocker. Essentially what I did was I just tried to figure it out on my own and with friends as well. I owe a lot to a lot of my friends who are co-founders because they gave me a lot of insight of what it takes to be a co-founder, how to raise money, how to find a team, how to properly organize everything so that everyone is aligned. For me, because I'm a first-time founder, it was just figuring it out as I go along. And every step of the way, just being vulnerable and being open to things changing or maybe things not going the right way. But again, just being confident in knowing that what you're building is going to be amazing and could potentially change the world is the thing that's driving me the whole way. So the first thing was just asking friends and family, like, what do you think of this? And people that saw me throughout my journey and people that really trusted me. So I owe a lot to my friends and family that were able to help me through that process. And then taking it a step further, once I've gotten that, just trying to find people, more of the angels and the VCs, which I'm not gonna lie, has been a challenge, but we have been successful so far.
So tell me about the dream. I want you to paint the picture. What are you trying to build right now? And why do you think that matters?
If you've been following along in the AI space, you'll know that there are still many challenges to being able to use these tools in Hollywood and being able to control your outputs and create consistency. I think that's a huge gap that's missing in the AI space. And what I'm trying to build essentially is a world engine. Basically, you can create the world which in your story lives in and then generate whatever you want within that world and then maintain consistency throughout. And at the heart of Storyblocker is still maintaining the workflows and everything that exists in production. So still holding on to the craft of filmmaking and being able to control your output, I think is still extremely valuable. If anyone's using text to video models, for instance, your outputs are beautiful, but do you really understand what it takes to be a filmmaker on a traditional Hollywood set, right? Let's say you are an AI filmmaker that has made brilliant trailers or brilliant concept pieces, and and someone gives you the opportunity to now direct the next, I don't know, Will Smith movie or whatever, are you prepared to do that? If you've never shot anything, I would say no. But if you use a tool like Storyblocker that prepares you for that and has been able to bridge that gap between artificial intelligence filmmaking and traditional filmmaking, I think that better prepares you for those bigger opportunities. So for me, it's like working with actors is still very important and a big part of Storyblocker's mission. Working with crew, and also more importantly, still integrating a real camera, a physical camera in some way or form is a big part of what we're doing at Storyblocker.
So it seems like it's taking the role of both a creative technology tool that allows you to imagine the film that you want to make, and it's also an educational platform and pipeline for folks who might not have the same opportunities to make films, especially now, to learn about a traditional filmmaking process and to get more comfortable with some of the things that are required of making an actual film.
Yeah, it breaks down the barriers of entry, right? Because filmmaking is a very expensive process.
Such an expensive hobby.
Very expensive. I think that even the iPhone has been able to democratize photography and filmmaking in so many ways, and we're utilizing the iPhone in many ways for Storyblocker. So being able to break down those barriers, being able to democratize filmmaking so that a kid in Cuba can now work at the same level that James Cameron was working when he made Terminator. That's what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to introduce these tools that allow that.
That's such a beautiful mission.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's something that's helped me. Like I said, I didn't have these opportunities. I never went to film school. I never went to college. But because I had that computer when my father first brought it, that computer provided me with all the opportunity that I needed growing up.
It's beautiful to see that as an entry point for anybody.
Yeah, of course.
And what are the challenges? What have been the big tough things that have come up on your journey of building this tool, but also making your own work?
I'm a small fish in a very, very big pond with lots of billionaires and all the Googles of the world. But I think building something that is completely different than what everyone else is focused on is very important because it differentiates you from anything else that's in the market. That's a big one for us, is not making another image generator, not trying to compete with Midjourney or anything like that. So creating something entirely new that hasn't existed before, I think is how we will be able to win. You know, as a founder, I think every day you're just sort of like on the edge of your seat to see if Adobe or Google is going to drop the very same thing that you're working on. However, it's important to be able to focus on what you're doing and ignore everything else, to just have tunnel vision. Tunnel vision is so important. The other day I read a quote from Ridley Scott, and Ridley said that he was so depressed when he saw Star Wars because he never thought that he would make anything as good as Star Wars. And I think that's crazy because he made Alien, right? So if you're worried about what the next guy's doing or what the next person's building, they say comparison is a thief of joy. And it's important not to compare yourself to what anyone else is doing and just stay on track and just follow your vision, follow your gut and your heart, because that's what's led me to here right now. And, you know, I'm just going to keep following that path.
Oh, it's so beautiful and inspiring. What inspires you?
You know, I love hearing stories of how Walt Disney started Disney from his uncle's garage here in Los Angeles, like a block away from my house.
Wow.
Hearing stories like that, it's like really super inspiring, and knowing all the ups and downs that Walt went through, or anyone who's created something amazing, sometimes you just see the success and you don't know what they went through to like make that thing happen. And it's really important to know these stories so that while you're going through your ups and downs and all of your challenges, you understand that that is just part of the journey and there is light at the end of the tunnel. So for me, that's really inspiring. My wife is really inspiring. So, you know, just having family and someone that you're working hard for, I think is very important too. But just knowing stories of other people's struggles, I think is really key for founders because it doesn't just happen overnight. I think they said like Edison made 900 light bulbs before he created the light bulb or something. And, you know, most people think that he just probably made it on his first try, or, you know, I love history. I love documentaries and I love learning about that stuff.
That's really beautiful. And I think we had another guest who was talking about the sort of learning from the past and the empowering and very critical experience of learning from the past to inform your future.
Absolutely.
So it just feels like the smart move to see what's happened before and apply it to this moment.
Absolutely.
You also have an experience that not a lot of other people do, which is working on a feature-length AI film. I was not blessed to participate in this experience, nor was I able to come to the premiere, which I was very sad about. However, I had a lot of friends who did and were excited about it. And I'd love to know a little bit about RT2 Remake and what the process was like for you from a creative perspective, and then also what it was like for you from just a technical perspective, because it seemed like such a beast to wrangle from Discord, getting a ton of different filmmakers to make a lot of different scenes as a part of this remake.
Yeah, I mean, I owe so much to the AI community to make that movie happen. At the end of the day, I was just the glue that put it all together. But
how did it happen?
Basically, there was a movie that came out 10 years ago called Our RoboCop Remake, which was sort of this exquisite corpse way of filmmaking where they remade RoboCop. A lot of indie filmmakers did it traditionally. They all shot their own individual scenes. And I love that movie. You know, I thought it was such a great idea. So when it came to the AI community and the question kept coming about, like, will we ever see a feature film? And I think people are so asking that question now about feature films and, you know, seeing AI in Hollywood officially. And just like everything else, like I took it upon myself to answer that question, right? So I immediately called up Sway Molina, who is my co-executive producer, because at that point, he had a Discord server with a lot of these artists that he was already sort of curating and creating a community. And I was really impressed by that because he was able to recruit artists and work with artists, and he was already sort of working within the community space. So he was a perfect person to team up with. And then after that, we started recruiting people and telling people about this idea that we had of our T2 Remake, exquisite corpse way of filmmaking. And I think it really lends itself really well in AI because, well, first off, the reason why we chose Terminator is because at every conference I was at, people would always say, Skynet's going to take over. Terminator, yeah. AI is going to be the end of the world. And we really wanted to showcase the opposite of that, which is this beautiful community of artists that are creating such amazing, inspiring things. So we wanted to flip that script and show the opposite story of what people are already using and use Terminator against them, right? Like take it back, right?
Reclaim Terminator.
Reclaim Terminator for the good of the AI community.
Beautiful.
So that was our mission statement. There were a few integral parts to make all of this work. And it sounds really like hard or like genius or whatever, but it's really
complicated.
It sounds really complicated, but it really wasn't, because I like to abide by this philosophy where if you find a really talented artist, let them cook. Just let them do their thing, right? That's why you hired them for, right? Don't micromanage them. Don't try to change how they're going to work. Like, just let them work. And I think that was how I went about the whole entire process, because I'm not going to micromanage 50 artists. I'm just going to let them do their thing and then let them give me the end result. But the way that we put it all together was through Discord. Discord was very important for all of us to create our own channels, organize all our thoughts. And it was also a way for us to stay accountable for each other. Accountability was a big part of this because it was a passion piece after all. Zoom was really big for us to just kick off the production of this and for everyone to get on the same page and ask questions, because it was also a global community of artists. We had people from all over the world, like Australia, China, England, Germany, just all over the place. So Discord, Zoom, and then when it came down to like distributing the scenes, I had created a web store on our website where people can purchase the scenes. It was almost like an NFT drop or like a sneaker drop.
But for free.
Yeah, exactly. So like basically we had this big Zoom call Friday where everyone understood the rules of the movie. And then on Monday, 7 a.m., everyone knew to purchase the scene number that they wanted. And everyone knew what number correlated to what scene. And we just like laid guidelines like don't use anything from the original movie, use your own original music, write your own scripts, and make sure that it's parody and satire. We didn't want to cross any legal boundaries that we weren't comfortable with. So it was really just about laying the blueprint and the guidelines for everyone to follow. And the rest just worked itself out. I will say there were a lot of ups and downs where there might be like weeks where nothing was getting done, but like I would reinvigorate that energy by bringing in like a new artist or like creating a new piece of promotional material or something that would get everyone excited. So cheerleading was a big part of it. Motivating the team was a big part of it. And
they're like, thanks, Dad. I forgot.
Yeah, exactly. You know, just staying on top of people in like a motivational way. You know, experiences like that just help you become a better leader and a better communicator.
Because you can't just whip them into doing it because it's supposed to be a passion passion project.
Exactly.
So you were like, do this scene.
But again, that really just tells you a lot about the AI community in general, how passionate people are right now. And it's really funny because some people don't call AI artist, but I don't think any AI artist is getting paid. So I would say that AI artists are more artists than anyone else because everyone's just doing it for the love of the art and for the passion of it. So yeah, I owe a lot to just the passion of the community. I think that that's what made that happen.
And you put together a 90-minute film that was a remake of Terminator 2, which is a pretty huge feat.
Yeah, it was actually like 2 hours long at first.
And then you had to cut it down.
And I had to cut it down to make it something that people would watch.
Did you like it when it finished?
Yeah, actually, surprisingly, my wife is very honest. And so she is a good litmus test for anything that I do. She's a very good critic. She went to art school, so she understands critiquing. So I showed her the movie. First off, let me just go back a bit because me and my wife are so different. I'm very much the technologist and she's the fine artist. So if you go to her studio, it's all paint brushes and paper and materials and all of that. And when you go in my room, it's all just computer buzzing sounds, right? So that's how we complement each other. So she's not into AI at all. In fact, she might even hate it. But that's good because, you know, it's like I'm not just closed-minded.
Right.
So I showed it to her, like, what do you think? She's like, you know what? Honestly, not that bad. It's
good.
Not that bad is good enough.
We'll take a not that bad.
Exactly. So, you know, it could have been like just terrible, unwatchable, which is a big risk. And at the end of the day, RT2 Remake is an experimental film. I think people have to understand that. It's a very experimental film using experimental technology.
Yeah.
However, I think it's a necessary experimental film because if you want to make a feature film using these tools that are very experimental, you have to make experiments before you do the final product, right?
Right.
We succeeded in what we wanted to do, which was essentially make the movie and put it out there. So even being able to showcase it at a movie theater in Los Angeles and have a big red carpet premiere, you know, all that was success because at the end of the day, we're showing that you can do something great with these tools and you can showcase it on a platform like that. Now, what we're doing with the T2 artists and all of us, we're taking all of those learnings and now we're applying it to something original.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that's like behind the scenes is like we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we take everything that we learned from that project and create something not so experimental, a little bit more mainstream and a little bit more palpable. Actually, one of the T2 artists, Sebastian Ungrad, just launched a brilliant kids show using artificial intelligence. It's an 8-minute long TV show, pretty much ready for mainstream. And they used AI just to be able to simplify that process. So that right there just shows you some of the learnings that Sebastian was able to take from the T2, or of course, he's a brilliant artist. He's been doing a lot of AI stuff even before so, but it's important to experiment before your main contribution happens. And I think that the T2 project was part of this experimental phase for us.
What's next in a sentence or two?
So right now, I'm focused on launching Storyblocker, and also behind the scenes, we're working on our next film project, hopefully with a budget or something like that. With some of the T2 artists, we're putting together a concept for what our next film looks like. Other than that, I'm having a baby, so that's really exciting.
Congratulations.
So getting ready to be a dad, that's a big thing.
Making life,
yeah, building a house. So yeah, it's a very exciting stage in my life right now where it's all about building a foundation for the future. So I'm really excited for that.
That's so beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah,
Fatherhood is going to be big.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy, but fun all at the same time.
Well,
so.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
In the spirit of the show being called Dear Future, if you could say one thing to your letter to the future, what would that be?
Oh man, I don't know. Dear future Nem, congrats and keep pushing. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what my past self might say to me, but...
But to the future itself?
Oh, to the future itself.
To the future itself. Not just you, but to the future itself. What would you say to the future?
Wow, I don't know. You kind of like stumped me here. That's a pretty deep one. I don't know. I would say you're welcome.
I love that. That's the confidence we need.
Yeah, I mean, like, everything that happens in the future is because of what's happening now, so...
That's beautiful. I love that. Dear future, you're welcome. I'm going to say that to myself in the morning.
There you go, yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is super fun.
It's been great.
Appreciate it.
That's a wrap for today's episode. A huge thank you to Nem for joining us and sharing his insights on the evolving world of AI and filmmaking. It's been fascinating to dive into his technology, his background, and how the world of AI is reshaping the craft of filmmaking and changing what the future holds for all of us. If you're excited by Nem's journey and technological explorations, please check out Storyblocker and keep an eye on his creative projects. There's going to be many magical things coming out of him very soon, I'm sure. A massive thank you to Echo Bend, including my incredible producers, Noah Wagner and Ryan Turner, and many countless others who work tirelessly to bring these episodes to life and share them with the world. They are incredible, and I highly recommend you check out their work. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, share with your fellow friends. We'll be back with more stories from the frontier of creative tech. Until then, please keep pushing the boundaries of your own craft, and we'll see you next time.
Dear Future.